Over the last couple weeks, we've looked at structures of power within our society. And so today we're going to look at what Proverbs would teach us on how to deal with powerful people. Proverbs gives us information on what to do when you have to dine with the king. That is one of the dynamics it shows. And so the next time you're invited to a state dinner at the White House, these verses are going to come in very handy. Or if the King of England invites you out to tea, this will come in handy, and you'll be familiar with these verses. Now, before you mentally check out, before you say, I'll never worry about those invitations, that's not going to happen to me. Let me point out that while we may not dine with the president, and we do have people of power and influence in our lives. Maybe someday you'll go to dinner with your boss or an executive from the company. That's the company that you work for. Maybe you'll be invited to some form of community function where awards are given out and for community service, and there are politicians and governing officials there, or some other function, some volunteer service, some disaster relief, something that you're doing that turns out there are officials there. Maybe you will get to go to a party that involves your professors and academic advisors. There are people of influence, people of power that have power in your life. And so think about those. Those are people that you may encounter in the community. And so they might have some say in your future, and you'd ask the question, what should you do or not do when you're required to sit at their table? And so we're going to look at that today. You don't know what tomorrow holds, so you should always be ready to act with wisdom in whatever situation life brings your way. In fact, in Proverbs 22:29, we read this. It says, do you see a person skilled in his work? He will stand in the presence of kings. He will not stand in the presence of the unknown. And I think this is true for all of us. If you're good at what you do, then your work will take you to the place where you do meet powerful people. Okay, maybe not the president, but powerful people. You won't stand in the presence of the unknown. People with power only want the best. And so if you do the best, if you give the best, well, that can lead you into meeting them. And that's a dynamic you face in real life. Now, before we meet powerful people who are influential, the first thing we might want to consider is that there are people in the world who do have power over us. Now, I think as Americans, that concept might seem a little offensive to us. Okay, I don't want people having power over me. I'm an independent person. But there are people who do have power, who do have influence. And the more powerful they are, the more you may want to consider the consequences of angering them, or also the consequences of being in their favor. Okay, that's something to consider. Proverbs chapter 16, verse 14, we read, a king's fury is a messenger of death, but a wise person appeases it. When a king's face lights up, there is life. His favor is like a cloud with spring rain. Proverbs 19:12, a king's rage is like a roaring lion, but his favor is like the dew on the grass. Proverbs 20, verse 2, a king's terrible wrath is like a roaring of a lion. Anyone who provokes him endangers himself. People of power and authority in your life, whether they be the president or the governor, or maybe your boss at work, or maybe the president of your homeowners association, or perhaps the judge that you go before. We talked about maybe going to court before a judge. Well, that's a person of power and influence. These people have the power to do you harm and make your life miserable. I mean, that homeowners association guy, he might go over there measuring your grass, and it could happen. They also, though, have the power to bring blessings into your life, power to show you favor. And so when you deal with them, you should be cognizant of their influence over your situation. Don't be so arrogant as to believe these people can't make any difference in your life. They can, and they very likely will. Now, maybe you've watched people on, TV court, telling their strategy before presenting the case. I remember one young woman, she was about to go into court, and she said, well, I'm going to tell the judge who I am. Well, you know what? No, the judge told her who she was and what she was going to pay. That's the way it went. You got to be careful. Approach them understanding who they are. It's foolish not to recognize the reality of power structures in our society. Just because you don't like them, or because they offend you, or because they don't fit into your opinions of how society should work, doesn't mean that they aren't real and that they won't have impact on your life. And so what Proverbs would give us the wisdom of taking that knowledge. You should go into any encounter with people who have authority with a clear understanding that they can help or hurt your progress in life. The proper response to this knowledge is humility. Humility. Proverbs chapter 25, verse 6 and 7, we read this. Don't boast about yourself before the king, and don't stand in the place of the great. For it is better for him to say to you, come up here, than to demote you in plain view of a noble. Jesus gave a very similar statement. In fact, Jesus put it this way. This is in Luke chapter 14, beginning of verse 7. It says, he told a parable of those who were invited when he noticed how they would choose the best places for themselves. When you are invited by someone to a wedding banquet, don't sit in the place of honor, because a more distinguished person than you may have been invited by your host. The one who invited both of you may come and say to you, give your place to this man. And then in humiliation, you will proceed to take the lowest place. But when you are invited, go and sit at the lowest place, so that when the one who invited you comes, he will say to you, friend, move up higher. You will then be honored in the presence of all the other guests. For everyone who exalts himself will be humbled, and the one who humbles himself will be exalted. We should always act with humility. With humility. Never try and grab the best for ourselves. That's a bad manners. But it's also unwise. To promote ourselves in front of people of influence, to walk into the king or the president's office or the governor's office, hey, you know who I am? Well, they probably don't care who you are. Let's start with that. But it's foolish to promote yourself. Doing so can backfire on you so that it actually leads you to humiliation. So instead, what we're told in Scripture, both in Proverbs and in the teachings of Jesus, is we should humble ourselves. Take a lesser station than you really deserve. Don't demand the better stations. Take the lesser station so that when they see this, they can publicly promote you. And then you will be exalted. You will be lifted up. Don't act like you're important in front of someone who has power, because they have the power to humiliate you. Instead, be humble and let them exalt you because of your work and because your character speaks for itself. The first rule of survival when dealing with powerful people is humility. Be humble. You always do better with humility when you're dealing with anybody. When you're dealing with your boss, when you're dealing with an official, you're dealing with the judge, the person who's polite and is humble before the judge. They're going to do better. A second thing we will find in Proverbs is this. This is Proverbs chapter 24, beginning of verse 21. It says, my son, fear the Lord as well as the king, and don't associate with rebels. For destruction will come suddenly from them. Who knows what distress these two can bring? Our first priority is to fear God. We've seen that throughout Proverbs. But you're probably going to do very well to also have a healthy fear of the king. Okay? In our society, we might say you should fear the government or fear justice. You want to have a healthy respect for the officers of the law. We should not lightly associate with people who are rebelling against them. Do not lightly associate with people who rebel against the government, because I'm going to tell you, you can get yourself into a whole lot of trouble. That's what it says here in Proverbs. Now, this passage, though, doesn't warn us about our own rebellion. Most of us would prefer not to lead open rebellion against God. I mean, I'm assuming that's why you're in church this morning. You would not want to lead an open rebellion against God. And most of us would also not care to lead an open rebellion against the government. That'll get you in trouble. That'll cause you problems. But what the verse is actually warning us is not to associate with those rebels who are doing such. Because when destruction comes on them, it's likely to going to be coming on all those associated with them. Okay? Right now, if the Antifa's having a riot, don't hang out in the middle of it. It's a bad plan. Okay? Just don't do it. That would be a good Proverbs thing here. And if people are bad-mouthing God and constantly trying to rebel against God and what God has told you to do, those are not the people you want to associate with. Likewise, if people are bad-mouthing government officials and rebelling against the authority they have legitimately have, then those are people you don't want to associate with. It'll cause you trouble. to associate with rebels and troublemakers who want to fight anyone in authority. And there are people out there who just want to fight anyone and everyone with authority. Well, associating with them will bring trouble on you. Now, chances are most of us, I'll say most of us, will probably not be involved in a conspiracy against the president. But what I've seen far more commonly is this in the workplace. Okay, now we think of these in terms of government, but I've seen a lot of workers bad-mouthing and even provoking others to rebel against management. I've seen them conspiring against their bosses, complaining, and that never ends well. See, management is the ones who have the ability to hire and fire you. Okay, you rebel against management, usually you wind up unemployed. And so associating with rebels against management can make you suspect of their rebellion and hold you back from promotion if it doesn't cost you your job altogether. Now, you might say, that doesn't seem fair. Life's not fair. We're not talking about what's fair. We're talking about what's real. Real is if you give your boss trouble, he may give you trouble back. Okay? So if you want to survive well around powerful people, then don't associate with rebels. That would be the advice we're given here in Proverbs, because doing so will only get you into trouble. We also read this. This is Proverbs chapter 30, verse 10. It says, don't slander a servant to his master, or he will curse you, and you will become guilty. Now, maybe this is the other side of the spectrum, not, bad-mouthing the boss, but bad-mouthing the other employees. But don't use your relationships with people of power to slander someone else, to slander them to their boss, to the person they work for. Don't make false statements that damage someone's reputation. Don't talk smack about people who you work with to those who have a position over them. If you do, and they find out what you said about the coworker was false, then the one's going to get in trouble is you. If you're talking bad about people and they find out you're lying about them, you're giving false information, you're slandering them, the boss is going to get mad at you for causing trouble. So the best thing to do is just not talk about anybody. Don't talk about people. But if you must talk about people, say to your boss, maybe your boss specifically asked you about a coworker, then you better make sure you tell the straight facts. Don't slander. Don't give false information. A good survival rule for dealing with powerful people might be this: if you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all. That's a good survival rule. Furthermore, if you must speak, make sure you speak the truth. Tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, the unvarnished truth. The way it is, no additions, no embellishments. Now, the day may come when your good behavior and your skills pay off, and you are invited to associate with people of power and influence. And so Proverbs gives us this warning. This is a warning we have. Proverbs chapter 23, beginning in verse 1. When you sit down to dine with a ruler, consider carefully what is before you, and put a knife to your throat. If you have a big appetite, don't desire his choice food, for that food is deceptive. Then dropping down to verse 6, we read, don't eat a stingy person's bread. Don't desire his choice food, for it's like someone calculating inward. Eat and drink, he says to you, but his heart is not with you. You will vomit what little you've eaten and waste your pleasant words. See, when you get invited to dinner with a powerful person, the occasion is not about dinner. People don't throw banquets so they can eat. Okay? If they're hungry and they want to get something to eat, they go to McDonald's. Okay? They don't throw a banquet for that. When a person of power and influence has a formal affair, they are displaying and exercising their wealth, their power, and their influence. It's not about the food. When the President of the United States has a state dinner at the White House, it's not because he got hungry. It's because he is wielding his political power and influence at the dinner with the guests that he has invited. When the president of your company, who probably doesn't even know your name, invites you to a company dinner, it's not so you can grab some grub. It's a business function for them to impress and influence their employees. Now, I think bosses often do this. They think, if they throw a pizza party for you, you'll do a better job. Have you been there? I've had jobs like that. But that really has nothing to do with their desire to sit down and eat pizza with you. That's not why they're doing it. They want you to be indebted to them. Now, truth is, what you really want is a bigger paycheck. I mean, not the pizza party, but okay, that's a different story. But the more you eat, the more you owe, at least in their mind. So watch what you eat. That's what we're told here in Proverbs. And I've been to those company parties, and I've never yet seen one yet where the boss was impressed by people's behavior at the party. Watch the boss. If you ever go to one of those parties, watch the boss. He's not there to be impressed by you. Where the boss is going to be impressed is your skills in your work. Do a good job. Make the company money. They'll like you. Not how you eat pizza. So if you want to survive in dealing with powerful and influential people, you need to recognize that anytime you're invited into their presence for a social gathering, it's not about being social. It's about business. It's about money. It's about power. It's about their influence in the company over you as an employee. What should you then do? Well, watch what you eat. Don't think you're just there to enjoy the party. You have been invited for business purposes, so you should be there to take care of business. Take care of business. You can eat when you get home. See, while you're at the party, you want to be on your best behavior. You want to act properly. You do not want to make a fool of yourselves. And sometimes people, do make fools of themselves at company parties. Have you ever seen that or heard of that? I mean, usually it's through drunkenness or gluttony. And that's usually where they fall in trouble at the company party. And that is the primary warning, it seems to be in this passage. But you could probably also do it by running off at the mouth. You ever seen a company have trouble at a Christmas party where people got in an argument? I mean, okay, this is the dynamic we're looking at. So whether this dinner is with the President of the United States or the President of your company, they didn't invite you there to socialize. They are watching you, so be aware of it and watch what you do. And understand they are doing it because of some obligation or they want you indebted. They feel they owe it to you or you owe it to them. Now, Proverbs does give us a strategy for how to make friends and influence people. That's something we see in our society. We like to make friends and influence people. Well, here's what Proverbs has to say. Proverbs chapter 21, beginning of verse 14. A secret gift soothes anger, and a covert bribe, fierce rage. Proverbs 18:16. A person's gifts opens doors for him and brings him before the great. Proverbs 19:6. Many seek a ruler's favor, and everyone is a friend of one who gives gifts. Everyone likes getting presents. Everyone likes getting presents. For some people, gift giving and gift receiving is actually part of their love language. I mean, there are folks that's how they show appreciation. So for those folks, this may work better or come more naturally. However, we're told really everyone likes getting gifts. It will make you friends. And this is true even with powerful people. Giving gifts will make you friends. Maybe we saw this recently in the news. Maybe you saw it not long ago. The nation of Qatar gave President Trump a Boeing 747. I don't think they actually gift wrapped it. Okay, just, gave him the present. Now, technically, it was given to the Department of Defense for the president to use as a future Air Force One. But what was interesting is, you may have noticed this in the week, this week in the news, the nation of Qatar has, the same nation that gave him the plane, has just been given permission to build a training facility at Mountain Home Air Force Base in Idaho. And that's where they're going to train their pilots to fly the F-15s that we are selling them. Okay? They give gifts. It goes both ways. Can giving gifts influence powerful people and gain powerful friends? Well, yes, it can. Actually, all these nations do that with their allies. They give gifts back and forth to each other. That's what we just read in God's Word. And a thing to be careful about is there have been times where we've given gifts or sold weapons, and then they turned out not to be our friends. So you got to watch that. That's a different sermon. We'll save that. So be careful about that. But I would suggest to you that we should be wise in doing this. It's not wrong to give gifts to people and to want to please them. And so we should be wise in how we do this with people. The other side of that is you can have the wrong gifts backfire on you. Now, if you're a person of power, this probably doesn't impact you so much. But for those of us that are not, it can. Many years ago, I was a legal secretary in a governmental law office at the state level. And for Secretary's Day, the attorneys gave all of the secretaries a rose. Now, most of the secretaries were women. Okay. There were a couple of us that were guys, Mario and I, but they gave all of us a rose. And the attorney we actually worked for is a guy named Bob. And I don't know, Bob giving me a rose just didn't seem right. Didn't seem quite kosher. You know what I'm saying? It just, Mario and I felt this just wasn't, a good deal. And now, truth be told, I got over my offense rather quickly. It wasn't anything personal. Bob did not go out personally and pick out my rose. They sent the administrative assistant to go buy roses for all the secretaries. I mean, when people of power are giving out gifts, they don't necessarily personally gift wrap them. They have assistants to do that. And so, they did that. And it hit me pretty quickly. It'd been a while since I'd given my wife any flowers. And here's a free one. This could turn into a good deal. I mean, it's a good thing. So I got over my offense really quick, decided to make good use of the free flower and took it home to my wife. And so, all that ends well. So, but you do want to be careful giving gifts. You want to make sure it's a gift that will be valued. Now, if you're a person of power and you give it to someone lower, well, Bob didn't care if I was offended. It didn't matter to him. On the flip side, though, if you're giving gifts to someone of influence, you want to make sure pick the right gift. You may also have an occasion of disagreement with someone who's more powerful than you are, or even just a disagreement between two powerful people. Good advice here, picking a fight with someone bigger and stronger than you are is not smart. Okay? You walk into your boss's office and challenge them to a duel, that's not going to go well. Okay, it's not going to go well. You don't pick a fight with someone who has more power than you are. How should you approach such a confrontation? Well, here's one thought. I thought it was an interesting thought. Proverbs 18:18, we read this, says, casting the lot ends quarrels and separates powerful opponents. Rather than seeing two people of wealth and power fight it out, even though that might be more entertaining to all of us, watch them. But rather than seeing that, it could be very destructive in their battle. I mean, have we ever seen rich and powerful people arguing and it drags into big, long lawsuits and it's destructive and costly? Well, that can happen. Or nations that are powerful having conflicts, that can happen. It could be destructive. And so the wiser course can be to cast a lot, or maybe in our culture, to toss a coin to decide between them. In many games like football, soccer, tennis, they actually toss a coin to see who gets the ball first. It's part of our culture. It's how we decide things when there's an even play field. In fact, right here in Arizona, I looked this up as I had memory of it, but we had a legislative district that the candidates tied in their election. And so they had a poker game to decide who won. The election was in 1992. It was a tie between the candidates of John Gaylord and Richard Kyle, and Jane Hall, who later became governor, but at that time was the Speaker of the House, was the dealer for the poker game. And so they technically played five-card stud. And I'm not a poker player, so, but played five-card stud, and Richard Kyle ultimately won the game. And so in a manner of speaking, though, they kind of did what Proverbs said. I mean, here you have two powerful people opposing one another. It's a tie. How are you going to decide who wins? Well, they went to a game of chance. And so you can save a lot of trouble avoiding a long fight between two powerful people in a game of chance. I mean, they could have spent years in court fighting over who won, recounting the ballots, but they didn't. Now, if you're in a situation, though, where your opponent is more powerful than you are, then let me suggest this. Using a coin toss to decide between you may be your best chance at winning. Okay, I'm giving you, this could be a sharp thought on your part. A person of power may not be willing to surrender their power to a game of chance, but in our culture, we seem to have this bias against people using power over others, and so you never know, they might go for a game of chance if you can talk them into it. And so if you can get, hey, let's toss a coin to decide, it might be your best chance to win. Now, at the end of the day, we need to remember this, because I think this is most important. Proverbs chapter 29, verse 25, the fear of mankind is a snare, but one who trusts in the Lord is protected. Now, yes, there are people in our world who hold positions of power, people who hold positions of influence, and they may have a great deal of influence over our lives and over the world that we live in. But in the end, there is one. There is one who holds all power, and his is the only influence that's really going to matter in the end. You should have a healthy respect for people of power and influence. The Bible teaches us to respect those in authority. Treat them respectfully, treat them politely, act with humility. And we should not be foolish in how we approach the people of influence in the world in which we live. But at the same time, if you properly fear the Lord, you will never have any reason to fear man, because God's the one in charge. The one who puts their trust in the Lord will be protected. It's kind of like appealing to the higher authority, like kosher hot dogs. Some of you might remember that commercial. Okay. But you put your trust in him and you do what is right. Now, after hearing all this, you might still be saying to yourself, well, I'm never going to attend a banquet with anyone important. I've retired. I'm past working. I don't have to worry about the boss. I don't live in a homeowners association. Amen to that. Well, let me tell you something this morning, though. It's not true that you've never be invited to a banquet with someone important. That's not true. In fact, in Matthew chapter 22, beginning in verse 1, we read this. Once more, Jesus spoke to them in parables. The kingdom of heaven is like a king who gave a wedding banquet for his son. He sent his servants to summons those invited to the banquet, but they didn't want to come. Again, he sent out other servants and said, tell those who are invited, see, I've prepared my dinner. My ox and fattened calf have been slaughtered, and everything is ready. Come to the wedding banquet. But they paid no attention and went away, one to his own farm and another to his business, while the rest seized his servants and mistreated them and killed them. The king was enraged, and he sent out his troops and killed those murderers and burned down their city. Then he told his servants, the banquet is ready, but those who were invited were not worthy. Go then to where the road exits the city and invite everyone you find to the banquet. So those servants went out on the roads and gathered everyone they found, both evil and good. The wedding banquet was filled with guests. When the king came in to see the guest, he saw a man who was there not dressed for a wedding. And he said to him, friend, how did you get in here without wedding clothes? The man was speechless. Then he told the attendants, tie him up hand and foot and throw him into outer darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. For many are invited, but few are chosen. The fact is that you have been invited to a wedding banquet. You have been invited to a banquet with the powerful, not the United States, the President of the United States, not the King of England, not a billionaire who's the president of some Fortune 500 company. No, that's not what I'm talking about. You have been invited to dine with the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, the banquet feast, the marriage feast of the Lamb. I'm going to tell you, that's the social occasion of all eternity. That's the event you would stake your soul on going to. You don't want to miss this one. So how can you get ready? How can you be prepared to attend the banquet with the most powerful being in existence? Well, first, accept his invitation. He's invited you. Accept the invitation. He wants you to come to the wedding feast. You are invited. Many of the people we saw in the story Jesus told were so busy with the things that they were doing, their business and their farm and their horses and whatever they had going on, that they missed the most important event in all of eternity. As a result, they got cut from the guest list. God chose someone else in their place. God's invited you. Accept the invitation. Don't miss the opportunity. He wants you to come and sit at his banquet table, but you have to make the choice to accept. So that tells you, you better RSVP this invitation. Okay? Make your arrangements, make your reservation saying, yes, Lord, I'm coming to the banquet. Here I am. You can do that this morning because God has invited you. And so you need to respond to him saying, yes, I will attend. Yes, Lord, here I am. Second, Once you have agreed to attend, then you need to be aware this will be a formal occasion. You need to wear your wedding clothes. Now, not to worry about that because they've been provided for you. The king has provided the wedding banquet. He's provided the clothes. All that we need is there. And understand, our clothes, what we could provide for ourselves, was nothing in God's sight but filthy rags. It wasn't good enough. We can't get into the banquet on our own, with our own clothes. But that's why God sent Jesus. He sent Jesus to take our filthiness from us and replace it with his clean, pure robes of righteousness. He will give you the clothes that you need to wear to the wedding banquet, but you have to choose to wear them. It's required. Dress code. Will you do that this morning? Will you accept God's gracious invitation to the banquet with the most powerful being ever in existence? And will you accept the provision of everything you need to attend that wedding feast? It's an all expense paid. All you have to do is accept. All you have to do is put it into use, but you have to choose. And that is what it'll take to truly sit with the powerful. Thank you for watching this video. If you live in the greater Phoenix area, we would love to have you come and worship with us in person any Sunday morning at 9:30 a.m. The Meadows Baptist Church is located at 3701 West Beardsley Road. That's the side road of the 101, just west of 35th Avenue. We would love to have you pop by as we celebrate Jesus together.